Hey, welcome back. Last devlog we went down a bit of a rabbit hole on the traffic system, and that's okay, but we want to get back to the core gameplay. I set up this basic testing map. Before we get started, I'm going to swap out the default Unreal skybox. It's kind of boring and generic looking, so I'm going to pull in the skybox for my first game that's set in space, and I'm going to pull in also the Earth and the Moon rotating in the background as well. It doesn't make a lot of sense for a game, but it's kind of fun and mixes stuff up. I also found while driving around that the frame rate would randomly drop. To figure this out, I turned on tracing. Unreal includes tools so you don't have to guess what's slowing you down. So I'm going to turn on tracing at the bottom and then capture what the application was doing when it slowed down. The trace file is a little daunting at first, but once you know what everything is, it's not too bad. The graph at the top is a timeline of the frames. The pink area to the left is where I turn on tracing but hadn't started the game yet, and then it turns to orange when I'm running the game, and it can show that the frame rate is going up and down a little bit, but staying reasonable, and then you can see it turns red and goes and spikes up high when it's slowing down. So to figure out what was causing this, you can then look at the section below the timeline. This is called a flame graph. The flame graph shows what your application is calling, what functions it's calling while it's running. I'm going to put out a whole video on debugging, but for this video, just know that the issue was this slowdown traffic overlap event. If you look at our NPC car, it has this collision box. When the box overlaps with another car, our car slows down to the other car's speed. The other car is then right on the boundary of the collision box. Every tick, we move the first car forward so that the overlapping stops, and then move the second car forward so that it overlaps again. This causes a lot of thrashing that you can see in the graph. It's a little hacky, but my quick solution was to add a 0.1 second delay to slowing down our car so that the collision box overlaps with the car in front of us a bit more. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's add some buildings to our map to break things up a bit. We want to see what it feels like to drive around turns. Let's also put in some boxes that we can hit to make the alley between the buildings more interesting. I was reading about how special effects artists generally try to have a big, middle, and small detail to their effects to make them more believable. You could say adding these boxes is a middle effect to this section of the map. It's not integral to the gameplay, but it makes the environment more engaging. Now let's test driving around and picking up a weapon. I added a counter of how many swipes we have earned in the lower left-hand corner. The pickups cost a certain amount of swipes, so you have to swipe a couple NPC cars before you can pick up a weapon. During this, I found a design improvement. When driving around, I couldn't see where the pickups are. We want the game to be frantic and the player needs to quickly know where they need to drive to. So I added this big column of light that you can see above the buildings. The column turns green when the player has enough swipes to purchase the item. We have our weapon pickup, and we have a basic system to unlock weapons, but we don't really have a system for spawning enemies. They're just placed in the scene right now. Let's make an enemy spawner together. For our enemy spawner, let's have a simple box where enemies can spawn inside of, and a text label so we can see the enemy spawner easily. The spawner is a bit small, so let's make it a bit bigger. Nice, okay, let's go into the blueprint of the spawner. First, let's set the tick to every second. We don't need to decide every frame if we should spawn new enemies. Then let's go into the actual tick and spawn the enemy. We'll just use our AI test class for now. And we then need to set the transform, so we'll get the spawner box and use that. Let's test it out. Whoops, we kind of made our AI actor giant. We're inheriting the scale from the spawn box, so let's go back in and fix that real quick. Let's make it more dynamic and have it spawn multiple enemies at once. We'll update the spawner to keep spawning until a set number of enemies are in the level. And let's have it spawn more enemies when there are fewer enemies alive on the map. We can do this by subtracting the number of already spawned enemies from the max count and multiply it by an arbitrary spawn rate. For now, let's do 10%. Nice, alright, we got them spawning in batches now. As you can see, they are not very fast. Let's try increasing the mob size to see how that impacts performance. 100 enemies does fine. Jumping up to 300 at once, not so much. If we slowly spawn 20 enemies at a time, once we get above 100-ish enemies, the frame rate slows down. Spawning these actors isn't the best way to do large crowds, but for now, 100 of this type of enemy is reasonable. Next item to tweak is the time limit system. Let's decrease the level's starting time from 999 to 20. I'm also going to update the NPC cars so that if you have less than 20 seconds and you swipe them, you'll get 20 seconds back. If you have more than 20 seconds, swiping a car will add an additional 2 seconds. This gives the player the ability to build up a cushion of time. Let's also give the player 2 seconds if they kill an enemy. That feels a lot better, or at least closer to a reasonable timing system. We want the player to feel rushed to keep doing actions, but not so rushed that they are distracted from what they are doing. Next thing that feels off is that once you pick up a weapon, you have it forever. Let's add a timer to that as well, so when the player picks it up, they can only use it for a limited amount of time. We will also give the player a bit more time with the weapon if they kill an enemy. I'm kind of sick of looking at timers on the UI, so let's make the weapon availability a progress bar. I like the stylized progress bar of old games like Burnout, so I followed a simple tutorial. A link to the tutorial is in the description. Eventually I want some flame textures and effects when we add more time to it, but we'll do that later. Let's go back to adding some more geometry to the level. Just adding some more detail gives a better sense of space. It's hard to tell just watching the video, but the environment does feel more engaging to drive around. This video is getting a little long, so let's finish up with one last thing. We need a win condition. It's not the most creative, but let's have the player win by collecting a set number of points. We'll add one more counter to the UI to track points. We'll make swiping an NPC car 2 points and killing an enemy 10 points. Just to test the win condition, let's set the goal to be 20 points. We still have a long way to go, but we have the bare bones of a gameplay loop. Next video, I think we should make collecting points unlock new tiers to the level, so that it gets progressively more hectic. Anyway, if you want to see more videos as I work on this game, consider subscribing. Thanks. Bye.